Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of PGTips. I'm Gary in Stockholm.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Gary. I'm Paul in Barnsley.
Hi, Paul. So today we're going to talk about Lisa and Patrick and the Purple Pirates and the process of how we're starting with looking at, and you're starting with looking at, illustrating this. As we said before, we're turning this into, regardless of what happens, a published book. And so we're going to follow the whole process and see where we land from the things that we're doing now in terms of developing the creative side, but also contacting agents, publishers, layout, all that kind of stuff.
Yep. And if we happen to go through self-publishing and publish it ourselves, then we'll document all that, how to get it into bookshops and into schools. But let's just remind people that this is a book, a text that you wrote. I had a read through a while ago, and then we decided, why don't we collaborate on something? And I remembered Patrick and Lisa and thought, that's the kind of book I would like to read. It's the kind of book I'd like to illustrate. So let's give that a crack. So yeah, I had a read through it and thought, wow, there's a lot to tackle there. So take it in small chunks. So I'm going to let people know how I approach that in case that's my idiosyncrasy or whether a lot of people approach it in the same way. So read it through a couple of times, get an idea of the characters. We mentioned in the last episode about setting the scene with a map, and you've got some images of maps, and I wanted to set the scene. I like putting maps at the front of my books. And when I was reading it, I thought little fishing village, quaint, back streets, down to the seafront, harbour. I thought, I've been there. That's a village called Staithes in North Yorkshire, because I'm in the UK. I've been there a few times. I immediately thought, right, we're going to go there this weekend. I'm going to take my sketchbook. I'm going to sit and sketch all the little buildings and fishing boats, which I'm going to do. But that was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. So I thought, right, we'll do that eventually. So I'm going to start jotting down some of the traits and characteristics of each character. But I know that drawing portraits of characters in picture books, in early readers and graphic novels, that's a fun part, because you can just a still picture of them. You can put lots of information. Like we both said that we like to put lots of little bits and pieces, extra information and diagrams around. So that's something to look forward to. So I like to tackle the things that might be, that looks a little bit difficult. So I picked some of the action scenes that you've written, and wow, there were quite a few. Said in the last episode, there's one scene where there's hundreds of cats, hundreds of rats, all the townspeople, lots of farm animals. They've walked up the hill to Lisa's farm. I did roughly sketch that out very quickly in pencil. Thought, right, I'm going to leave that. I will tackle something maybe not quite so adventurous. So I picked out some of the more dramatic scenes and started sketching them out. And to take it seriously, I picked out a notebook. So that's a dedicated sketchbook just for Patrick and Lisa and Purple Pirates. There's lots of cats in the book. And cats is one creature that I've not drawn much of. So you'll see later that I found lots of cat reference. So I started filling pages and pages with drawings of cats, just to get a feeling of cats, because I'm going to have to draw them in lots of different scenes and sometimes lots of cats at once. And I've realised with other jobs, commercial jobs in the past, advertising jobs, I gather tons and tons of reference, which gives me the confidence to go forward. And it's like building a nest of reference material. So that's what I did. I started looking at the books that I like in that genre and reading them, having them with me as though some of their magic would rub off. And I think it's just like having these tokens of inspiration, whether it's reference or other people's work. And it gives me that kind of kickstart to propel me forward. I don't know if other people recognise that. Further down the line, I'm going to talk about the media that I worked in. Because I really like working a particular pencil. But I didn't want to have the time to do all these illustrations in pencil by hand for the finished artwork. I wanted to use the iPad for its convenience. Yeah. So that'll be a future episode when we get to that. So maybe I'll show some of the images of what inspired me. So the books that
Yeah.
inspired you in the last episode.
Yeah.
Interesting that there's a nice crossover and a repetition of some of them.
Oh, good.
You also made me think of my childhood, but like you said, we'd go off for the day, not come back, might take a sandwich, might not just eat all day. And we'd just go out looking for birds' nests, having adventures. There was one time we actually went to these cliffs, and it's a known thin cave, and you can get, there were no phones to have lights on. I think maybe someone had a torch, but we had candles and matches because probably one of the kids smoked. And we crawled in the pitch black, two at a time, in this narrow chamber because there was a big drop at the end. And if you went so far,
Okay.
you could get on this rock that tipped. And then it tipped. And that's what you dared yourself and your friends to do in the dark. Go and find this rock and it would tip. God knows what would happen if we'd have gone down. No one would have ever found us. But that was the excitement and the adventure in those days. Probably inspired by these kind of books that we're going to have a look at now.
Yeah, definitely.
So before I get to the books I read as a child, these are the books I read now and that have inspired me to think about the artwork for your story. So Adam Stower with King Coo. I think this is a fantastic series. This must echo Adam's childhood, like we've been talking about ours. In the woods, there's this strange little girl, bearded girl character, King Coo, and Ben goes in and has lots of adventures. But I like the way that Adam captures the image and the drama, but with not many marks on the page. Like there's a full scene there at the bottom right, the battling the baddies. But if you look at it, it's quite simple, even though it feels dramatic and cinematic.
Yeah, it's so good. Adam is fantastic at doing that, right? Creating, you can even see like on the one with the eyeball creature, just the angles that he's choosing. It's very like cinematic in his approach, and it makes a huge difference to the end result.
That's why I included that one in particular because, and again, if you're thinking of illustrating your own book, don't always pick the straightforward, straight-on scene. Look from bird's eye view looking down, like you get movie shots. Look at the worm's eye view looking up, or tilt the angle just for that extra bit of drama. And I like the way that a lot of people who've worked in movies and animation, they know to put that silhouette block in the foreground to give you that depth so that you're looking through. There's already a 3D depth to it because you're looking through these dark trees to see where the action is. Like you mentioned in the last episode, we met Johnny Duddle and learnt from him and heard about how he approaches books. We've also done the same with Adam.
Yeah,
Excuse
it was
me.
fantastic to meet and talk to Adam, and he's also a plein air painter as well. Like he loves going out with like in urban sketching and stuff like that. So it was fun to meet and talk to him about his approach. It was really excellent.
And even though these images look simple, it belies how much work he puts in because we saw how many sketches he might have done before the one that gets accepted into the book. So just pop these in again. I can't illustrate so quick and what looks like simple. Mine involve more detail, and I try and lose some of the detail. Maybe as I'm working, I lose more detail as it goes along, and it gets a nice momentum. Once I've reached that stage, I realise, this is where I want to be. But I might start off by putting more work in than I need to. Johnny Duddle, as we've seen already from your inspirations, and the one on the left again, cinematic shot without looking out of that cliff, that cave mouth. It's interesting enough, but with that cave mouth, it just gives it that extra depth and maybe some ominous expectation with the dark. And of course, he's brilliant at drawing pirate ships because he lived on a pirate ship and sailed around the UK for 12 months. So he knows them in and out. So I'm going to be looking at some of that for my inspiration. And his characterization as well. Fantastic.
Yeah, so good.
The Creakers, I love these characters. There's not the kind of character I can draw or naturally would draw. I could copy that, but it's not what naturally comes to mind to turn to my pen when I'm drawing. Shane DeVries is brilliant at capturing characters.
Yes.
And then this is something you introduced me to. Danny Dragonbreath is not a character or a book series that I knew about. But again, punchy and simple. So then,
What I like,
sorry, go on. Yeah.
yeah. What I like about Danny Dragonbreath is the simplicity, the kind of big shaped action, and it brings up those kind of very simple cartoon things, but at the same time, there's enough detail to be super interesting. So, and I think that when I think about like what you do, sometimes when you say, "Oh, I get so far into the detail," it's like if you go there and then you pull back and recalibrate, you can get somewhere in that nice sweet spot in between. And then also the kind of gestural language that she uses in creating these images, fantastic, right? Those kind of shapes of the characters, Danny Dragonbreath, and all this. Yeah.
So as well as the reference material of other people's books that I like to keep with me, I do like to gather the physical reference that I need for imagery. Like I said, there's lots of cats, lots of rats. So in the past, I would just pull things off the internet, print them out, but I have just pulled them off and kept them in files. So we're just going to have a quick look at some of the reference to show you how I work. So there's Danny Dragonbreath. So pirates. I can sketch a pirate, but it wouldn't be as convincing as a Johnny Doodle pirate without reference. So I like to surround myself with references, I've said. So these are some of the references I pull out. There's some of my images of Patrick, which is quite interesting because he looks pretty similar to the image you'd got on Patrick.
Yeah.
That kind of youthful, energetic, like you said, tech-minded youth, bright.
Yeah.
And then cats. So I'm going to whisk through these because I've gone a little bit crazy with the cats. I have sketched some of these, but as you can see, I took a lot of inspiration and lots of imagery off the internet just to get the feel for cats. So I've drawn quite a few cats like this so that when I do need to draw Cheese the cat or Fudge the cat in the story, I have an idea about them. And those expressions on the right, they're quite handy and useful.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
When you're going through your reference, how do you decide, how do you make like one character distinctive? Because you have two cats, let's say, and you want them to be like, and they both, you don't want to make one fat and one skinny, let's say. How do you make it distinctive? What do you think about when you're illustrating? What do you do?
It probably would be the size of the cat if it's like a podgy comic cat. Those two at the bottom on that particular page I particularly like because I thought they've got some character. They're not just ordinary images of cats. It would have to be the kind of cat that it is, I guess, like a marmalade cat or an old black cat. So change it so that the readers know which cat is different.
Right, so use color.
Yeah, an old black cat. Try and get some characterization in the face because I have worked as a character designer in the past. So there are different ways you can do bigger eyes, younger looking cat. Yeah. I've only drawn two of the cat characters so far. The internet and Instagram is awash with videos of cats like this, so they're handy to draw. If I sat and drew 20 of these images, looking at different cats, I could then probably get rid of all the reference and I've got that armory. Then I know that's in my bag. I can draw cats then in future. Handy to draw silhouettes as well, because that might give you the distinctive difference between two cats if they've got different overall shapes. So I did go crazy with cats. There's a lot of cats. But that's the cat. In fact, I'll just come out of there. Let me just stop that. We'll come back to that one. So the cats that I drew, I ended up sketching, if I can get it in focus, by sharing like this at the bottom there.
Oh, yeah.
Cheese the cat asleep on the round. It's not being focused, but if I put my finger there, it might be. That's Cheese the cat asleep on the windowsill. I thought, right, I'll start with that to draw as a cat. So we'll come back. So I sketched that, drew it a couple of times as finished artwork, but wasn't totally happy with it. Did a few more images, like I drew the lizard wizard, which is a wonderful character. I drew one of the pirates, and then I came back to the cat. I thought, no, it needs to be just that little bit plumper. So I've drawn it again. And I think that's what will happen as I work through the book with you. Some of the early ones that I needed to get out on paper to see if that's how they look, I'll revisit them and probably draw those again. And you can feed back to me and say, actually, Patrick probably wouldn't do that, or he might have that kind of bike. Or so, yeah, it'll be which is unusual, the back and forth process, because illustrators and the author don't often meet, do they? And often chat like that. So that's going to be...
not in the traditional, but nowadays, I mean, very many picture books are written and illustrated by the same person. So that's kind of a very common thing. And then the illustrator wouldn't necessarily, they'd work with an editor at the publishing house rather than with the writer. Yeah. But because we both are illustrators and writers, then this kind of bouncing back and forth is natural to us. We're not you and I are not going to piss each other off, by saying something, because we know how that process is. And it's totally part of us trying to get more and more close to the thing that we want to create.
Or if we do.
Because that can, yeah.
If we do piss each other off, just tell each other.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's oh my God, you're going too far now, or whatever. Yeah. So it's also part of that process too, right? It's you want to inspire the other person to make the best thing that we can make. And at the same time, you want to make sure that it is good, and, that it kind of conveys the messages that we want to create and share with people.
I'm really looking forward to it. We will just go back. I could have left that on screen now, I realise, because that is the last one I want to show today.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's take just a final look at this one.
Cheese the cat asleep on the windowsill on the left-hand side with a vague fishing village in the background. It was fine, but I think I jumped to wanting to do finished artwork. I moved to that a little too quickly. Refining the sketches, exploring the character a bit more. And I'm happier with the one on the right, just that little bit plumper. And I realised I don't need to hint at the fishing village in the background. That can come later. Yeah.
Yeah, the sunlight shining is quite nice, and the plumpiness does give us a certain feel for cheese, especially.
And it can be a little motif of an illustration, this one. I think we said in the last episode, it's so disappointing when you think, this book's illustrated. And then you realise it's just the same illustration repeated as a chapter heading.
Yeah.
And there's no real proper illustrations for you to get excited about. But I want to do some little motif icons, like we've said, maps and compasses that we can dot around, compasses, treasure chests, so we can dot those around the book. But then I don't want to shy away from the big scenes. I want readers to feel think, oh, wow, let's get into this. Or, everything is there that's in the story. And more, maybe, and leave things out. So I want, like the story inspires wonder in me when I'm reading it, I want the readers to be inspired, to be made awed by the images in there as well. So next episode, I'm going to mention how I work. That's how I set up my work, making this nest to make myself confident and comfortable.
Yeah.
Not being happy with the initial things I do, but I've come in retrospect to see that is just a process.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the last episode about hitting a wall sometimes when you're writing.
Yeah.
We've both said we now realise that's just the process you have to go through. That's not a big obstacle. We've talked about getting through or around that kind of writer's block or artist block. And it's not the end of the world. It's a process. It's a bump in the road to getting where you need to go. So,
yeah, I mean, because ultimately, I think if you have the idea, like you just said a second ago, of you want to create wonder, and then the process or let's say the pain or the challenges just become part of this whole scenario, like a child learning to walk or anything else, that you just have this kind of thing. I'm going there, I'm doing this. And then all the other stuff is just stuff that you do, but you're kind of creating wonder. I mean, that's it,
And the end result is that we want someone to open the book, and just by using words and pictures on a page, they're transported. It's like putting a VR headset on they're transported to the island and enjoying the adventures with Patrick and Lisa. So, looking forward to the next episode. I'll say
See you next time.
Yep.
Yeah, bye from here. Bye.